All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into the CB2 receptor.
Yeah.
This thing is kind of a VIP in the world of cannabinoids, right?
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to the immune system.
That's right.
And we've got some pretty hardcore research to unpack here.
Oh, yeah.
PhD level stuff on cannabinoid signaling.
Uh-huh.
But don't worry, we're going to break it all down together.
You will.
Explore the structure, the function, the whole 9 yards of this CB2 receptor.
It's fascinating stuff, really.
So to kick things off, can you just paint us a picture of what this CB2 receptor actually is?
Sure.
Where does it hang out in the body?
Okay, so think of the CB2 receptor like an antenna on the surface of cells,
Okay,
primarily immune cells.
gotcha.
It's always looking out for specific signals, and those signals are cannabinoids.
The cannabinoids, right?
Yeah, like the ones your body makes naturally.
Those are the endocannabinoids.
Exactly, endocannabinoids.
Okay,
But they can also come from outside sources,
like cannabis.
like certain plants. Yeah.
So when a cannabinoid, let's say one of those endocannabinoids, binds to the CB2 receptor,
Mm-hmm.
what happens then?
Well, it's not quite like flipping a switch.
No.
It's more like setting off a whole chain reaction.
Okay.
You see, the CB2 receptor is a type of G protein-coupled receptor,
Okay.
or GPCR for short.
GPCR, got it.
Now, these GPCRs, they're notoriously complex.
I bet.
But imagine this.
Okay.
When a cannabinoid binds to the receptor, it's like a key fitting into a lock.
Okay, I'm with you.
But instead of unlocking a door, this binding makes the receptor change its shape a little.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it kind of shifts its structure.
So the receptor gets a little jiggy with it, huh?
You could say that.
But what's the point of all that shape-shifting?
Well, that's the crucial part.
How so?
That tiny change sets off a whole cascade of events inside the cell.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly.
So what are the dominoes in this scenario?
The dominoes are these things called G proteins.
G proteins.
They're basically coupled to the receptor, just waiting for their cue. Uh-huh.
And once the receptor changes shape, the G protein gets activated.
So the G protein is like the messenger,
Yeah, you could say that.
spreading the news that, hey, a cannabinoid just docked.
Right.
But where does this messenger go?
Well, it interacts with other molecules inside the cell.
Okay.
Think of it as a relay race.
I like that.
The G protein passes the baton to other signaling molecules, and each handoff triggers a specific action.
And what's the end goal of this whole relay race?
The end goal is to change what's going on inside the cell,
Specifically.
like gene expression within the immune cell.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Gene expression.
Uh-huh.
So we're talking about influencing which genes are turned on or off.
Precisely.
I mean, how does a simple binding on the surface of the cell lead to such a dramatic change inside the nucleus?
That's the beauty of these signaling pathways.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
They act like this intricate communication network,
Right.
relaying messages from the cell surface all the way to the control center.
And by tweaking gene expression, the CB2 receptor can really change how the immune cell behaves.
So we're talking about ramping up defenses, calming down inflammation, even cell death.
All of that, yep.
This tiny receptor is a pretty big deal then, huh?
It really is.
It's amazing how it can influence the immune system in so many different ways.
It is.
And to really understand its power, we need to look closer at those signaling pathways.
Exactly. That's where the real magic happens.
Well, I'm ready when you are.
Perfect.
But first, let's give our listeners a minute to catch up on all this.
Sounds good. Okay, so now let's get into those signaling pathways. It's like we're popping the hood on a super complex car,
Yeah.
seeing all those intricate parts working together.
So many moving parts.
Exactly. And we touched on some of them before. MAPK, ERK, JNK.
Yeah, those definitely sound like alphabet soup to me.
They do, but trust me, they're key players in how the CB2 receptor orchestrates that immune response.
Okay, well, let's break down this alphabet soup then. What's the big picture here? What are these pathways actually doing?
Essentially, think of them like molecular switchboards controlling the flow of information inside the cell.
Okay.
And when the CB2 receptor gets activated, it can flip specific switches on these pathways.
And that sets off a cascade of events.
Right, ultimately changing how that immune cell behaves.
I see. So walk me through it. Like I'm an immune cell just doing my thing. Suddenly, a cannabinoid binds to my CB2 receptor.
Okay.
What happens next?
Let's use the MAPK pathway as an example.
Okay.
This pathway is all about growth, proliferation, and even cell death.
Whoa, big stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty dramatic stuff.
So when that CB2 receptor is activated, it's like a chain reaction starts, right?
Exactly, like that domino effect you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I'm picturing those dominoes, one bumping into the next. But what are the dominoes in this MAPK pathway?
There are enzymes called kinases.
Kinases. Okay.
These are special proteins that can add a phosphate group to other proteins.
Okay, so it's like attaching a sticky note that says, hey, look at me.
You got it. That's a great way to think about it.
So this phosphorylation, as you called it, can activate or deactivate a protein.
Exactly. It changes how that protein behaves.
Fascinating. So these kinases are basically passing messages along by slapping on these phosphate sticky notes.
Exactly.
And in the MAPK pathway, this whole cascade of phosphorylation ultimately activates certain proteins.
Right.
And those proteins control which genes are turned on or off inside the immune cell.
That's it.
Wow. Okay, I think I'm starting to grasp how this one pathway, the MAPK, can have such a huge impact. But you mentioned other pathways too, right?
I did.
What about ERK and JK?
Right. ERK is all about cell growth and survival.
Okay.
You could say it's the pathway that encourages the immune cell to keep on fighting.
That's the good work.
Exactly. And what about JMK?
JNK is more involved in those stress responses and inflammation. Think of it as the alarm system that goes off when things start going wrong.
Gotcha. So the CB2 receptor can basically tune these pathways up or down, depending on what's going on.
And that's what makes it so interesting for therapies, right?
Exactly.
If we can figure out how to manipulate these pathways,
Yeah,
we could potentially treat all sorts of conditions.
that's the hope.
Autoimmune diseases, chronic pain, the list goes on.
It does.
So we're talking about developing drugs that can either activate or block the CB2 receptor.
That's right.
And by doing that, we could fine-tune these pathways and influence the immune response.
Exactly. There are already some drugs out there that target the endocannabinoid system.
Right.
But it's still early days. A lot more research is needed to really understand the ins and outs of these pathways
Sure.
and how we can safely manipulate them to benefit patients.
It all sounds very promising, but incredibly complex, too.
Oh, it is.
It makes you appreciate just how intricate and elegant the human body is, even at the molecular level.
Absolutely.
And we're not even done yet, right?
Not even close.
There are other key players in this endocannabinoid system, like the CB1 receptor.
Yeah.
And all those enzymes involved in making and breaking down the endocannabinoids.
Exactly.
So let's zoom out a bit now.
Okay.
Give us the big picture of the endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short.
Sure.
How does the CB2 receptor fit into this larger puzzle?
Right.
And why is understanding this system so crucial for unlocking its therapeutic potential?
Great question. I'm glad you asked.
All right, so we've really been digging deep into this CB2 receptor.
We have.
Well, you're saying there's this whole other layer,
There is.
this endocannabinoid system, the ECS.
Yep.
So what is this ECS exactly?
Okay, so picture the ECS like a massive control network
Okay.
spanning your entire body,
Wow.
like a behind-the-scenes crew.
Keeping everything running smoothly.
Exactly.
And this ECS is involved in regulating all kinds of things.
It is.
Mood, sleep, appetite, pain,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the immune system.
That's right.
So it's not just about getting the munchies and feeling relaxed.
Not at all.
The ECS does way more than that.
It really does.
And the CB2 receptor is a major player in all this.
It is, especially for immune function.
I'm trying to visualize this ECS.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly complex.
It is a complex web of interactions for sure.
So what are the main components?
All right, so first you have those receptors like CB1 and CB2.
The one we've been talking about.
Exactly. Those are like the lock and key mechanisms.
Waiting for the right molecules to bind.
That's it.
And then you have the endocannabinoids themselves.
Right.
The body's own natural cannabinoids.
They're like the messengers traveling throughout the body.
Interacting with those receptors.
Exactly.
And lastly, you mentioned enzymes.
I did.
What's their role?
They control those endocannabinoid levels.
Okay.
Some make endocannabinoids on demand.
And others break them down when they're not needed.
It's all about keeping things balanced.
Gotcha. So it's this delicate dance between receptors, messengers, and the cleanup crew.
All working in harmony to keep the body in equilibrium.
And where does the CB2 receptor specifically fit into all this?
So remember how we talked about it being mostly on immune cells?
I do.
Well, when the body senses trouble, like inflammation or injury, it triggers the production of those endocannabinoids.
Okay.
And then those endocannabinoids bind to the CB2 receptors on those immune cells.
Modulating their activity.
Exactly.
So the ECS is basically saying, hey, immune system, we've got a situation here.
That's a great way to put it.
Let's adjust things as needed.
Right. And the CB2 receptor is one of the key channels for that message.
It all makes sense now. And because it plays such a crucial role in immune regulation, it's become a hot target for all this therapeutic research.
Absolutely.
We could potentially treat so many immune-related conditions if we can figure out how to manipulate this CB2 receptor.
Exactly. We're talking autoimmune diseases, chronic pain.
Even neurodegenerative disorders.
A lot of promising research going on.
It's exciting stuff. But what are some of the challenges?
Well, one big one is specificity.
Okay.
CB1 and CB2 receptors are pretty similar in structure.
Right.
So finding drugs that only target CB2.
Without causing those unwanted psychoactive effects.
Exactly. It's tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And of course, we need to understand the long-term effects of tweaking the ECS.
Right. Making sure any interventions are safe in the long run.
Absolutely.
So it's not just a matter of finding something that binds to the CB2 receptor.
No.
It's about understanding this complex interplay within the entire ECS.
That's it.
And finding ways to fine-tune it without disrupting that delicate balance.
You got it.
Wow, what a deep dive this has been.
It really has.
We started with the tiny structure of this CB2 receptor, and now we've zoomed out to see how it fits into this grand scheme of the ECS.
It's all connected.
To our listener, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.
We hope you learned a lot.
We hope you've gained a new appreciation for this amazing molecule.
And its potential to change the world of medicine.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and remember,
What is it?
every single discovery starts with curiosity.